Hey, ladies, welcome to The Power of the Ask, the podcast where we ditch the waiting and embrace the asking for what we truly deserve.
Welcome to The Power of the Ask.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to The Power of the Ask podcast, which helps you get what you need financially and personally. We are so glad that you're here today. My name is Lisa Zeiderman. I am managing partner at Miller Zeiderman, and I am one of the co-hosts with my dear friend, Precious Williams. Precious, welcome today.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for that welcome. As our queen said, my name is Precious Williams. I'm the proud founder and CEO of the Perfect Pitch Group. I'm affectionately known as the Killer Pitch Master. And as we have each episode, we keep bringing you back these amazing guests. And so today we're excited to introduce you to Melissa Cisco. Now, you know I like to give you a little background on our guests before they go in. So Melissa is an educator, she's an attorney, and an advocate for generational wealth and a global leader. With 15 years in education and a legal focus in real estate, education, and immigration, she empowers families through smart investment strategies and teaches students the value of real estate. Where were you when I was coming up? As the director of high school innovation and special projects, she supports NYC's 1.1 million students and has led international trips to expand their worldviews. Melissa is passionate about creating meaningful, transformative opportunities for the next generation. Welcome, Melissa. We're so excited to have you with us today. And to kick things off, why don't you share something about yourself with our audience, something that they would not know by just reading your bio?
Well, thank you so much, Precious and Lisa, for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. Love the energy already. Yes. So one of the things I would have to say that people don't know about me is I really enjoy cooking. I love to cook, and I'll just try to come up with something that I may have seen on Instagram, or maybe I've seen in a show, but mostly Instagram. I see these really, really nice recipes that I'd like to try. So I do that. You know, I'm an IG food junkie, but I'm a foodie. So I will travel just to try something like a lobster roll. I'll ride out to the Hamptons just to get a lobster roll. So those are the kind of things I turn into an experience. So that's something somebody wouldn't necessarily see in a bio of me, for me.
Well, thank you. That's an interesting thing that you do. So you'll travel for hours to get that one lobster roll.
Yes,
I'm going to share that I used to travel for hours to get that one slice of apple pie.
Okay. I understand. Yep.
I understand this concept.
Yes, indeed. There's a play in Philly. I know you know the markets in Philly, the Amish market. So there's a Nigerian guy that runs like this Cajun spot. So he does a spicy Cajun, like a Nigerian version of a po' boy. So it's the best po' boy I've ever tasted in my entire life. So I need to do a Philly run for a po' boy.
And you can take me with you. You can take us with you.
Love it. Okay. We might have to put this in the show notes, I'm going to say, as to what the name of this place is now.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my question. So you built an impressive career at the intersection of education and law. It's an interesting combination, Melissa. How did your legal background influence the way you lead and you communicate in the education space? In other words, how did you put this all together so that it all worked and worked together?
Well, it wasn't something that I thought out thoroughly. Like I knew if I decided to go into education, because someone told me about a program. At the time I was doing these like refinance similars, workshops, foreclosure bailouts, refinancing, home buying. I was doing these seminars, and a friend said, "Hey, you're pretty good with these workshops. You know, you should consider teaching." And I was like, "Oh, okay." A couple of people said it to me, but the last time someone said it to me, I took it a little bit more serious. So a friend then told me about this New York City teaching fellowship, and I said, "What's the commitment?" So it's a 3-year commitment. They're looking for career changes. I said, I think I might like this, but I might like it too much, and then I won't leave. You know, I had a feeling it was something I would really enjoy. So I said, I'll do the 3 years, and then I'll leave. 16 years later, your girl is still here. So I didn't know all of how, because I feel like the law is like salt, right? It's in everything. So whether it is, you know, for today, it's the immigration piece, it's the civics, all the history is tied into policies. It's all laws everywhere, and you can't get away from it. So it just happens like now the students are my clients. Let's just say they're my clients. So, and I work to support their growth and development. So, I'd rather have the kids at this point as clients more so than adults.
I know that's right.
But it has helped me frame my thought process in terms of how I support students, whether it's their transition plans or whether there's other problems going on, whether in temporary housing, the support system that we can give those families, documentation, whether it's a student that's undocumented, may be eligible for DACA prior to it being deemed illegal. But I've done those things for families. So it's really, it has been it's been an easier lift to make sure that our students stay on track and they're able to graduate by that support system and
Great.
background.
Wow.
Problem solving. You're always problem solving, right? So if you have a family, if you have a kid who's not coming to school, 9 times out of 10, maybe they're in temporary housing. Maybe they just need some resources. So then I go into problem solving mode. And that's just what lawyers do, right? You solve problems. So you just solve problems.
Try.
You do your best, but you're navigating and you're learning in the process too. So it just happened that way. I didn't realize. And there's a lot of attorneys that have transitioned into teaching, mostly because of their legal background or their history, passion. Was global history or U.S. history. You find a very similar connection between U.S. history and the law, because a lot of the curriculum is based on court cases, whether it was the Japanese internment or, the Trail of Tears, with the Cherokee Nation. So it's all intertwined with law. And it's fascinating because the stuff you learned in high school, but you don't remember any of it. And so I feel like I'm doing high school again. Like I was like, oh my God, didn't you think this was really interesting? The kids like, lady, we don't want to know about that. Why stop that? I'm like, but this is really interesting. So I make kids kind of fall in love with history. And then whatever we're learning. So let's say, for example, if it's apartheid, we went to South Africa and we saw it firsthand. What was Soweto? We went to Soweto. They got a chance to go to the Apartheid Museum. And so they're able to make connections, text to world connections with the text.
I love that. And I love the fact that there are 3 attorneys in this episode. And you're right. I've learned to really love history the older I get.
Yeah.
And like the History Channel used to be my favorite channel to watch. Just fascinated with and then when you started talking, I thought Marbury versus Madison, because
Marbury versus Madison.
I will never forget that.
No one will forget that. No.
And then I love what you said about showing students like the real world and how history is a part of it by going to different places.
Absolutely.
When I became an attorney, there were so many things that actually started to make sense for me. And then real estate, which I know you are really big in. And a little birdie told us that real estate helps you design a life for yourself. So in getting into real estate, which seems so complicated to the outside world, what was your aha moment that made you realize that real estate could be a path to personal freedom and generational wealth and yet help your students too?
So for me, I hated property in law school. Like I hate
the rule against perpetuities.
You know, I was getting ready to say that, Rafa. I was literally about to say that rule against perpetuities. I hated property. I hated property, and I laugh every time I close a deal because I just couldn't connect. I couldn't connect the dots. It was boring. Right of reversion. Like, who cares about reversion rights? Like, what's a tenant in common? What's a tenant entirety? Like, why do I have to know this? But it wasn't until I got laid off from a job and I ended up meeting a real estate investor. He was fixing a house across the street. And I was fascinated by this fire to this beautiful house he put together. And he invited me to come work with him. And he was, like I said, he was flipping houses. I didn't really understand what that was, but I enjoyed the process and I was helping him and I was designing his houses. And he didn't pay me, but I enjoyed taking these houses and fixing them up with him. So I ended up going to work at a real estate firm. Then I realized he was ripping me off the whole time, but I was learning, so I didn't care. Like, he didn't pay me, but I was working, but I didn't care. I was learning. So I would have done that for free just to learn what he learned. So I went to go to a real estate firm, and I was doing like 4 to 5 closings a day. So my first year, I did like 1,000 closings. Like most attorneys don't even do that in their career. I did it in 1 year. And I learned so much about real estate just reading the loan documents, listening to the conversation with the attorneys at the table, listening to the title closer, and dealing with title issues. And most attorneys don't know title until you start actually doing the work. I've mastered title. Like I know title very well. But what I would look at is the loan applications, when we call them the 1003s. And I would look at the loan application and I would see who had money, how did this person get money to buy a house? What does it look like? And at the time, I had read The Millionaire Next Door, and I was trying to make the connection to the real estate, the Millionaire Next Door to what I was doing. And I saw that the people who had the most money were educators, teachers, MTA workers, I think sanitation. Like they had the highest salaries, like the highest assets, not necessarily salaries, but they had the highest assets. And I didn't understand how they had all this money, on the third house or the fourth house. And I said, okay, I pinned that. Like teaching is not a bad thing, right? People think teachers don't make a lot of money, but their annuity packages and the interest that they make off it allows them to grow money very fast. And you can pull money out and use it to buy a house. So if you have $50,000 sitting in a annuity or 401k, you can take that $10,000 out and go buy a house. And now you've made a couple of $100,000, and that you're not going to make it that quick sitting in your annuity. So I watched people do that. So, I had someone tell me you can get all the formal education you want, but you're going to learn your most from people. So I was studying how they were doing these deals. And I was like, okay, lawyers make the least at the table, but you get the information, you get deals. So being the attorney, I just watched. So I left this firm, started doing my own stuff. I represented banks. I represented sellers and buyers. And so I just learned, and that's how I learned about it. And I picked up property. I would do short sales. Anybody know what a short sale is? I was negotiating short sales for investors. And I was never turned down. Like I would just get paid just to do short sales. So I had one deal, was a great deal of foreclosure. I was like, I'm going to keep this one for myself. I said, I'm going to keep this one. Bought it in Bed-Stuy as the market was turning, and I knew it was going to turn. So here I am 20 years later, sitting in my brownstone that I could have flipped and made money, but I decided to hold on to it, and it will help me retire well.
So I'm going to say a couple of things because you've said so many things. So many things. First of all, I'm married to a real estate investor. And that's all he does. And I will say that, and I'm going to say this to our listeners also, because I think this is so important. I think that for real estate, and you tell me if you agree with this, Melissa, for real estate, you have to have almost an instinct for it. You talked about flipping houses and making money, but you have to know the timing, right? Because you could make a lot of big mistakes too in real estate. But if you have the instinct, if you're in it and you really know when's the time where we're really going to get into flipping houses, or we missed that boat at the moment and too many people are flipping houses and we're going to have a slowdown, right? It's not just as easy as what you've said. It is about really feeling it almost. It's part of you. Am I correct in that?
Well, I can also say that, and I tell people this, you don't make a whole lot of money flipping houses. You make money holding on to them. That's just, you don't make correct because if you do a deal and your profit is like $150,000 or $200,000, you got to pay all the money back that you lent, you laid out to do the renovation, and you got to pay taxes on it. I can spend $50,000 an hour. So you make money by any real money you make, you can't get to really easy. So I always tell people, and to your point, it's not necessarily instant, but if you're willing to be patient, you really want to make money, you're not gonna do flipping. You're going to hold on to them.
And when you talk about when you're educating your students in the classrooms, okay, what inspires you to teach them? And what do you teach them in terms of, so for example, you just talked about holding on to the real estate, okay? There's tax consequences, right? At the end, when you sell real estate, sometimes people actually hold on to real estate for their entire lives so that they actually can pass it to the next generation. And as the real estate actually increases in value, they will pull out the money and refinance.
Mhm.
Do you get into all of that? Do you teach them that?
Yes.
And what inspires you to teach them? And I'm dying to ask this. What's their age group?
High school. So in economics class, instead of teaching some of the boring stuff that we're learning, I teach them how to buy real estate. And I have students that have disabilities, but they're on their second house. They're buying houses,
Amazing.
and they work for MTA. They haven't gone to anybody's college, but they are making six figures, and they own their own home. So I would rather them do that than go to Target. I would rather them, figure out, because as I shared with someone yesterday, you can stay in your apartment, and when you leave your apartment, you're going to leave with your stuff. When you leave your house, you're going to leave with your stuff and a check. So which sounds better? You know what I mean? If you don't have a pension, this can be your pension. So that's something that, it's certain things that you have to say to people, say it's an aha moment for you. But for me, I was probably writing $2 to $4 million a day in checks. And I saw how people just living. So coming from the projects is like, sometimes it's hard to see past that, but I grew up in a very wealthy area. And I said, how are these people able to afford these houses? How are they able to do it? So me, I could afford to buy a house in Long Island at the time. The taxes were high. So I made a decision, go to Brooklyn because they have multiple dwellings. The taxes are low. I can get something there. I heard something that Donald Trump's father did. The first thing he did was he bought a 4-family. That's how he got started. He bought a 4-family. All he did was paint and throw carpet. And that's how he got started. So what did I do? I bought a 4-family, and I hadn't paid a mortgage by myself in 20 years. So and then as I did the first one, it was a lot. And I said, no, I'm not going to buy 10. This is too much. One was fine. I could have done 10. I could have done 20, but that wasn't I didn't want that life. But I can show someone how to get in. It's easy to obtain, but a little bit more difficult to maintain. And this is what I teach. This is what I teach my students. I teach adults. I teach people who don't have pensions now, how they can start to earn. You know what I mean? Buy something because you need a place to live. So at least, if nothing else, you'll have that and you can build some equity in 10 to 15 years. So at least you'll have something. For all of us who would, solo practitioners, or those of us who are out on our own, it's tough today for people, but real estate is a way for anybody to bounce back. It doesn't even have to be in a state. I tell everyone now, you want to get in the game? Don't think about New York. I said South Carolina, the entire down payment is $1,000 for the whole state. Why? I don't want to go to South Carolina. I said, who cares? Go pick up some. Why do you? It's $1,000. You can't come up with $1,000 for a down payment and at least $10,000. Who can't come up with that? At least your name will be on a deed, and you have a tax benefit. And look, everyone's going to South Carolina. Everybody now in South Carolina, prices are $800,000, $900,000, $100,000, over $800,000, $900,000, $1 million in South Carolina, because you didn't want to spend $1,000 because you didn't want to go to South Carolina. So, for those people who listen and stepped out on faith, they're doing very well. So for me, during the recession, 2008, I was like, I lost everything. I said, I have to pivot. So I pivoted into education, where I had to worry about health insurance, where I didn't have to worry about, I could still leave school at 3:00 and get to a closing at 4. And that's what I did. And I just designed the life for myself that I have by just being a typical millionaire next door.
Ladies, are you ready to take control of your future? Do you dream of financial stability, freedom, and a life that truly deserves you?
For over 20 years, Savvy Ladies has empowered women from all walks of life to make smart financial choices, achieve our goals, and build a brighter future.
We built Savvy Ladies as a community of women supporting women. We offer free financial educational programs, a trusted helpline, and guidance and advice from America's top financial professionals.
You can access the financial helpline at savvyladies.org, or where you get your apps under Savvy Ladies. Savvy Ladies equips you with the knowledge, confidence, and support you need to thrive. So don't wait. Join Savvy Ladies today and start building your financial confidence and well-being now.
Queen, I felt there were so many Beyonce drop the mic moments. I know Queen Lisa was feeling that too. There's so many things that you said, and I love that you're teaching the students and even, adults about this. A lot of us fall into situations and study, and all of a sudden we have this wealth of knowledge that we can impart to other people. Just listening to you, I felt kind of transformed because when I first came to New York in the summer of 2001, I saw all of these great brownstones. I saw all these things, but for some reason I wanted a penthouse. I didn't want a house like a regular house people could walk to. I just wanted a penthouse. One of the things that you said that really stuck out to me is you being in education and having those benefits, but also understanding that this skill set and this talent that you have will make sure you have a place to stay. And you're teaching others how to have a place to stay when everything else goes wrong. What are some of the most transformative experiences you've seen in others who've taken your training or your advice?
They're all millionaires.
So so you just want me to do this?
They're all millionaire. And that's like I told the kids, you can be a millionaire and be working at Dunkin' Donuts because you own real estate. Like you don't have to I don't need to have Beyonce's money. First of all, I don't need it. I don't need all of that. I don't need it. But I can do real estate and be okay. I can make just enough. I have a client who's a bus driver. The man's worth $5 million. He got 2-3 properties. He doesn't even have a car. He doesn't need one because he rides NTA for free. People look at him like he's just a bus driver. The man's worth over $5 million.
He keeping it real quiet.
I have another guy. He works at fire department. He has 2 buildings. One's a 4, one's a 3 family. He makes over $200,000. He doesn't even need the money. He works for the fire department. Why? Because he has 2 buildings. Goes to work at millionaire next door. So
My first apartment was in Bed-Stuy.
I told everybody buy Best Buy. I was like, what do you mean?
I will never forget.
Buy Best. I'm telling you, Best Buy is going to turn. For whoever listened, they're doing very well right now. For those who listen and didn't go to Jersey or didn't go to Long Island, but those who listen, everybody's millionaire right now.
So, Melissa, you lead international trips for the students. You mentioned this earlier, places like South Africa, France, Ecuador. What role do you think that these global experiences play in shaping your students' future and how they look at, I guess, even their education and their growth and their ability in terms of investing later in themselves and in others?
I think it broadens your thought process, right? And it makes you think like you don't have to be on this capitalistic rat race, right? You value time you spend with people. And this is what happened to me. I was traveling and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. If I keep buying all these houses and stuff, I'm not going to be able to travel because I got to be a landlord. I got to do that. It's slowing down my travel game. This is the God honest truth. And I stopped at 2 because it was interfering with my travel game. And I would much rather do that than just have, I felt like I didn't, exposing kids to this type of lifestyle makes you really think about your own and who has a better quality of life. Do we have a better quality of life? And what's that's relative to certain people, right? So I took my kids to Ecuador. We went there to do a service project. We built a library. We helped, the library was there. We painted and turned this old library into a real nice library. And what it did for them in character was amazing. Just to be able to serve. It really builds character, but also give you perspective because some of the kids who went from DR, it's some of the same culture, in terms of the poverty, but learning how to give and then look at what you have. Might be the projects, but you have running water. You have clean water. Some people don't. I've seen them go to the river and there are cows in there, but they get water, the same water. They have an issue with clean water. So it just really builds character for me. And it makes you really put things in perspective. That's just how I see it. And our kids have learned a lot from it. South Africa was a really interesting trip. All the trips I've taken were interesting in that, but really to broaden their horizons in their thought process and made them think a little bit more globally and not just, locally, or not even just, nationally, but globally, and where they see themselves in that.
I love that you did that. I did a training at the Mahalia Jackson School, it was, middle school in Harlem. And a lot of the young students had never been past, they didn't know what Central Park was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 110 Central Park North.
Mm-hmm.
We were at 141st.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you did that. And also, when I was growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, all I saw was the inner city.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I went to college and law school and all that the world really opened up in traveling. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for showing them that there is more to life than this block, this city, this state. There's so much more out there and that they can take advantage of it. So let's talk about the art of the deal. Negotiation is clearly a strength of yours. And is there a particular deal, a memorable deal that you closed, maybe more in real estate, that reminded you of the power of asking for what you want? After all, we're on the Power of the Ask podcast.
I'm gonna go back to when I was in junior high or starting high school. I think it was junior high. And I had to stay with my aunts. My mom was ill in the hospital, so we had to stay with my aunt. My aunt was very strict. So we would be outside. It was hot too, it was summertime. We were outside, and then when the park lights went off, we had to go straight home. So we had to go straight home, but the other kids were able to hang out. And I was like, okay, this is not gonna work. I gotta figure out how we can still stay outside because everybody else is outside. So what could I do? So I asked my aunt, I said, look, I'm brokering a deal for all of us, right? I'm the youngest of the group. And I'm like, listen,
Art of the deal.
can we just sit on the porch? I said, can we sit on the porch? If we come home at 10, could we sit on the porch and hang out with our friends on the porch? And my aunt said, yes. I couldn't believe, I said, she told me yes. I was like, yeah, I knew I had a gift. If I can move this mean aunt of mine to let us stay in the yard, that was a huge compromise, And from then I knew I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I had something I can convince people to do things. But the intent was never malicious in any way. But I think it was mutually beneficial.
You think you would get a win-win up in here?
It was a win-win. So I took that skill set. It's transferable in real estate. I remember negotiating a deal. It was a short sale, and the person the seller was losing their house, and they had a $63,000 water bill. And I was like, okay, is HSBC going to pay this water bill? I don't know. But I negotiated with them to pay the water bill. I couldn't believe it. No one could believe it. I was like, I don't know. I've never done that before. But, I enjoy doing those kind of things. It brings me joy. I don't even care if I'm going to get paid. But if I can do something that nobody has done before and everybody walk away happy, then that means I've done my job.
Good for you. Good for you. You are so multi-talented. You're a lawyer, you're an educator, you're a great communicator, you're obviously a mentor. How do you balance it all? And then what are you going to do looking ahead into that crystal ball, which I always say I can't see what's ahead in that crystal ball. Do you have that crystal ball? Can you see what you are going to lean into in the future, how you're going to build upon what you've been doing going ahead in future years?
Yeah. Oh, for me, for how do I balance? Because I believe balance is the key to life, right? I need to travel. I need to just take a minute and step away. So travel is my peacetime. That it resets me, it focuses me, it calms me down. And I choose to be amongst people who don't have anything. Because it's just a reminder. So I will do, like, next month, I'm going to do a Cuba run. So it's a food run pretty much, but I love Cuba. So I'm taking food down to a family that I support. And I'll go hang in Cuba for a week.
I love Cuba. Love it.
Probably will retire there. I will most likely retire there. And just really not one place, but just bounce around. I have a base. I bought a house in South Carolina. South Carolina will be my base, but I'll just hop around. But Cuba is a place that I come to love, and I want to learn how to speak Spanish fluently. So I'll just probably go to school there, and so I can be fluent. But for the most part, that's really what I see myself doing. And I also most likely will work with schools on a consultant level and just build capacity on their teams and build capacity with how they engage students in certain things, particularly entrepreneurship. But I will most likely just become a vendor and just consult with school districts across the country.
Good for you.
Queen, I'm a foodie too.
Eh,
It's like I want to go with you.
Yeah, I mean, I tell
And I was
people,
watching Anthony Bourdain when he was in Cuba. So it's just all these things are popping off in my head from what you're saying, and to live a life that you truly love and that you want, and there are options. This is
by
something we
design,
we bring with great guests on the Power of the Ass podcast.
by design, by design.
And
You
now
gotta live the
coming
life.
down to that final question: why is the power of the ass so crucial for women, especially financially?
I think that well, finances is not something some communities always like we're focused on. I remember in fourth grade trying to wrap my mind around stocks. We were learning. I'm from Long Island, Roslyn, very affluent community, but we weren't affluent, right? So we had to learn about stocks. I couldn't wrap my mind. I couldn't visualize what that's supposed to look like because we were in the projects. We barely have food. Like I didn't understand the concept of stocks, and so I didn't understand credit and why it was so important to invest. Like we just were not taught about financial literacy. And I had to learn about finances through my job as an attorney. And so I'm sharing with our generation of people why it's important for them to really just really don't be scared to ask those questions, especially in the 50s where, like I said, we've been consulting and we didn't have a nest egg. What does that transition look like? So how do you transition to make sure you have it's a plan. You have to have a transition plan. And as part of the transition plan, the money game got to be right. And so how do you help women who are 50, 60 years old and don't have a decent savings? I'm talking about Westchester women. I'm talking about Long Island women. Because that's a skill set for me. Teaching women how to go from not having anything to having a nest egg in your retirement time. You got these gifts, you're not using them. How can you take what you have and could put together a capability statement and help these women grow into retirement? That's what I'm doing right now. It wasn't even something I was doing like I intended to do, but I end up doing just having these conversations with you guys. All these
Can I
skill
say
sets, all these lawyers I know, I'm like, why are you not training people how to do debating? You're a great litigator. Why are you not helping schools teach their kids how to debate? Why are you not teaching your kids about like mentoring and helping them prep for the bar? How come you're not sharing with families like conflict resolution and you've been a family court attorney and you've been doing, how come you don't do mediation? So why are you not considering arbitrations? We have skills, we're just not using them.
I appreciate you so much. I feel like, again, I want to say mind blown. And also, this is what we want on the Power of the Ass podcast. Powerful guests who are here to help us, look at things very, very differently. I don't think about teachers, and teachers look like I haven't met one who had all of that all together. And to know that you understood the art of the pivot, the art of the deal from being in junior high all the way up, and knowing that a lot of us are just sitting on our gifts and we could be giving them to the world and training up the next generation.
And getting a check
I-
and getting a
Hmm?
check for it.
Oh, getting
Doing
getting checks.
and they're getting
Yes, we like the checks.
you're not getting
We
a
do.
check. It's like it's one of those things where I tell everybody lawyering is a hustle for me. It's just a hustle for me. So I'm quite fine with the city pays me pretty good money. I don't even care about that. When I first started, I didn't even care about that check. I didn't have to pay health insurance, and you're gonna give me a
He said, "Do you
pension?
hear me?"
You gonna give me a pension to take kids to South Africa? You gonna give me
It was on the deal.
you want to take people, you want to pay me to take kids to Switzerland and we going to be in a ski house in the Alps? You going to pay me to do this? So this just to me, how do you see it? How do you see it? I see all schools across the country have budgets. What can I do to support those kids in that district? Or what can I do to support a principal? Or what can I do to support a superintendent and a superintendent's team? What gifts can I bring them? It doesn't have to be a
The
school.
look afterwards, I love it.
It could be a corporation. It could be any, but I'm not going to sit here. I spent a lot of time and energy in law school and all of that for me to be sitting out and me not doing anything with it. And I should be able to do it from anywhere in the world. I'm going to leave that with y'all.
Do you all see the kind of powerful guests we have on the Power of the Ass podcast? They are simply amazing. And so if you want to see more guests like this, you need to tell a friend and tell a friend of what? Tell a friend to subscribe and watch the next Power of the Ass podcast, powered by Savvy Ladies, with my wonderful, beautiful, talented co-host, Lisa Zeideman, managing partner of Miller Zeideman, and me, the killer pitch master and the founder of Perfect Pitch Group. We aim, and we're so delighted to have the quality and the type of guests that make you just rethink everything, from investing to transitions to seeing that there is more to what you can offer the world than even you think. We are here to support women and female empowerment, financial empowerment. So keep coming back. It gets better and better. Right, Queen Lisa?
It does. And review, and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe.
Thank you, Queen Melissa. This has been an amazing experience.
Likewise, I
Thank
appreciate you inviting me. I really do. I had a great time talking to you guys.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Power of the Ass Ladies.
Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to spread the love with #PowerOfTheAss.